Strategy is one of those words that sounds powerful, but in practice it's often buried under buzzwords, frameworks, and templates. At its core though, strategy is about three things: understanding, deciding, and acting. So why does something so straightforward end up so complicated and often ineffective? What really makes a good strategy work? Before we can understand what makes a good strategy truly effective, it helps us to look at what makes a strategy fail. Bad strategy often hides behind impressive sounding words and complex frameworks, and as it turns out, it's actually easy to spot. It's usually defined by two key flaws. The first one is fluff. Bad strategy loves using vague, jargon-filled language that sounds impressive but says almost nothing. Take for example a bank that claims its fundamental strategy is one of consumer-centered intermediation. Sounds complex, right? But if you break it down, intermediation just refers to basic banking functions, like taking deposits and issuing loans, while consumer-centered implies a level of service that isn't actually unique. In other words, all they're really saying is our strategy is to be a bank. Fluff like this might seem insightful at first glance, but it's often a cover for weak thinking, using fancy words to mask a lack of real ideas. A hallmark of true expertise and insight is making complex subjects understandable. A hallmark of mediocrity and bad strategy is unnecessary complexity. Another key flaw is confusing goals with strategy. Effective strategy tackles a specific challenge, but without clearly defining the problem, what's often called strategy becomes little more than a list of wishes and goals, lacking any cohesive plan. History offers stark examples, like in World War I when European leaders called for one last push to victory, without any concrete strategy, leading to devastating losses. Winston Churchill described the Battle of Passchendaele as forlorn expenditure of valor and life, or equal in futility. So if strategy is so important, why does bad strategy persist? The answer to that question is that bad strategy often stems not from rational errors, but from a conscious or unconscious avoidance of the tough work involved in crafting a good strategy. At the core of this challenge lies the necessity of choice. Imagine a company losing customers to newer competitors. The CEO knows they need to make changes, but faces tough choices. They could invest in new products, which might mean cutting budgets elsewhere, or they could lower their prices to attract budget-conscious customers, which could weaken their brand. Instead of choosing one path, the CEO sets a vague strategy to become the market leader through innovation and customer focus. Sounds impressive, but doesn't provide any clear direction. The company ends up trying to do a bit of everything, spreading itself too thin and making little progress on any front. So templates and fill-in-the-blank approaches to strategy, where frameworks like vision, mission, strategy serves as substitutes for deeper thinking, which creates a sense of order but leads to generic solutions that miss their organization's specific needs. So what are the core elements of a good strategy? The kernel of a good strategy consists of three elements: diagnosis, guiding policy, and coherent action. Simple example is a doctor's approach to treating a patient. First, the doctor's clinical diagnosis names the illness, setting the foundation for the treatment approach. The therapeutic method the doctor selects, such as surgery or medication, becomes the guiding policy. Finally, the specific prescriptions for diet, lifestyle, and medication are the coherent actions that execute the treatment strategy. Diagnosis is arguably the most critical part of any strategy because it shapes the entire path forward. Take Starbucks for example. When the company faced declining profit margins in 2008, different analysts looked at the same problem but came up with completely different diagnoses. One analyst saw overexpansion as the issue, suggesting store closures. Another focused on rising operational costs, advocating for cost-cutting measures, and yet another believed the problem lay in branding, proposing a revamp of Starbucks' image and offerings. Diagnosis is not just about the facts of the situation, it is a judgment about the meanings of those facts. Once a clear diagnosis is made, the next essential step is the guiding policy, a framework for tackling the challenges identified. For a clearer picture of that, Let's look at Stephanie, who owns a corner grocery store. She was overwhelmed with decisions. Should she add organic produce, cater to nearby Asian students, stay open later, or add a second checkout? It was hard to know which direction would actually improve her business. Then she re-evaluated her situation and identified two core customer groups: price-conscious students and business professionals. This guiding policy gave her a clear direction, making her decisions simpler. Even though Stephanie's guiding policy might not be the perfect solution, it's far more effective than doing nothing or pursuing conflicting initiatives. By focusing on business professionals, she ensured that her actions were coherent. For example, she added a second checkout during peak hours, rather than staying open later, knowing her target customers wouldn't shop late anyway. Good strategy does not stop here. It needs clear, coordinated actions to bring it to life. This is often the hardest part, as various parts of an organization naturally want to optimize for their own objectives, which can lead to fragmented efforts. During World War II, President Roosevelt's coordinated actions were one of the biggest showcases of this concept. By directing US production to support the Soviet Union's fight against Nazi Germany, Roosevelt kept the Nazi war machine occupied, allowing the Allies to prepare for a successful landing at Normandy. In the end, strategy matters because it turns visions into real outcomes. Without an honest diagnosis, focused path, and coordinated actions, ambition alone won't drive real progress. These core principles are simple, but executing them takes discipline. Crucially, these three elements must work together. Each one relies on the other. When all three exist together, they compound each other's effect, creating a powerful, unified force. Without this balanced strategy is nothing more than an idea.